Hi! Welcome to this part of my review featuring the Nightfell core book. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review featuring this setting for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, where the sun has been murdered and darkness has taken over, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about two more ethnicities, the Ishdrim and the Krampus. Let's start with the Ishdrim, the overseas people. It is an eldritch lineage. Many among the Ishdrim are born with a natural propensity to learn the arcane arts. Since the First Age, when they still populated the land of Sarnium, they have worked hard to formulate superb charms, looking for ways to evolve and improve. Their great contention with the First Men led them to make a pact with the solar deity, the prime known as Holland, which granted them mastery over the element of fire. The Ishdrim are the only human population who did not descend from the Anireth. When the primes created the humanoids, two ethnicities developed in parallel. In the southern continent of the known lands of Yurmen, the Ishdrim prospered, and their cities grew on par with those of the First Men of the Thurinthian region. Although mild in nature, men and women from Sarnium were driven by great ambition and a thirst for knowledge. They sailed the seas to the north, intent on expanding their borders and forging political ties with other cultures. Initially, they brought riches and knowledge, making profitable relationships with the Varansin satyrs and the Grey Folk, who had recently gained their independence from the Anireth. The first problems of a political nature arose when the authority of the First Men clashed with theirs, creating social unrest and enmity that soon resulted in a conflict between these two equally powerful nations. Thus, in the year 2341 BL, the war between the Ishdrim and the Thurinthian Empire began and lasted for 20 years. The war, still remembered as the bloodiest human conflict, greatly diminished the Anireth and forced nearly all the Ishdrim to return to their native continent. The turning point occurred during the Rite of Flame, invoked by the ruler of Sarnium, Mahal III, who called for the aid of the sun and sacrificed his eldest son on a pyre. Devotion to the divine Holland did not go unnoticed, and that day his subjects drank red wine from golden goblets, traced arcane runes on their bodies, and invoked the flame of the shining star. The entire nation benefited greatly, for the sacred Solid, first among the primes, had touched them with his ardor. This event resonated through the ages, known as the Sun War. This terrible conflict also involved other nations, taking sides in the conflict to guard their allies or to protect their lands from the devastation of war. Lagoran, who was young at that time, showed considerable strategic and political skills in the face of the threat of Ishdrim. Taking advantage of the excessive growth in power of the adversaries, he worked to find a compromise where the Anireth and the overseas people could benefit from peace, rather than carry on with the war that would annihilate both. An implicit enmity lingered, where the Ishdrim could enter and settle in the lands of Thurinthian, provided that the jurisdictions of the First Men and that of Sarnium were respected by both sides. Lagoran, the most honorable man that ever lived, until recent events, gave himself as a prize to Mahal III, now hairless, and married his daughter Narija, who died giving birth to Mirithlen. Their noble daughter was the only one among the Anireth to manifest the gift of fire, but she avoided any pretense on her mother's lands, pursuing an ascetic life devoted to the study of philosophy and arcane arts. Mirithlen's fate and theories about her ascension to the moon are still material for myths and speculation, as it symbolizes the hope for reunion between day and night, sun and moon. Let's talk about the racial traits of the Ishdrim. The Ishdrim are a proud and stubborn people. Although many have adapted to the new life in the moonlight, they carry with them the ancestral legacy of their faith in the sun. Usually of dark or oleaster complexion, or of all the shades between the two, they often present themselves dressed in clothing that appears exotic and eccentric in the eyes of other citizens of Yurmen. Given their strong sense of community, they travel only to find a new home in which to settle after periods of population growth or shortages in resources, sometimes clearing up haunted ruins and building small fortresses. The arcane energy that comes from their ancient pact with the sun is evident on their skin. From birth, they present an arcane aura on their body and visage, as if branded with fire, and their eyes radiate light as if they were embers. When it comes to ability scores, you are usually pretty high in constitution, wisdom, and intelligence. The overseas people have a life cycle identical to that of other humans. The Ishdrim can live on contradictions as they are remarkably diverse in opinions and lifestyles. What unites all Ishdrim is the calm with which they pursue their ideals, manifesting themselves as elegant, proud, and mild-mannered. They are of medium size. They have decent walking speed. They are also proficient with scimitars and short bows. They are excellent, even superb travelers. They have resistance to fire damage, and they know flame-related cantrips such as Produce Flame or Flame Blade. When it comes to languages, they can speak, read, and write Common and the First Language. Some examples of their names include Arel, Brunu, Celeros for males. For females you have Carmita, Desheria, Estevira, just to give an example. There are also male or Indian names, because depending on where they come from, the names vary. So there are male or Indian names such as Hemadri, Madmohan, and Umush. There are female names in this category such as Amshula, Krish, and Kumari. You have male Harkemite names such as Akim, Ha'amir, Kushar, and female Harkemite names such as Awara, Haifa, Navila. Then we have the Krampus, the creatures of the Dark Mirror. The Krampus are diabolical beings, native to the reign of the Dark Mirror. Like many dark creatures of the Lunar Age, they draw their characteristics and power from the evil that permeates the material world. They usually do not excel in wit and merely follow the directives of higher entities, but over the decades they have evolved as humanoids of Yurmen, beginning to manifest more complex personalities. The Krampus are ancient creatures, dating back to before the Lunar Age. They are said to have been conceived by one of the first Perchtas in her own image, shaping their features from the void of Enfarud. Although the origins of this species are not well defined, the ancient tradition contains abundant literature on the bond these beings share with the wild and ruthless ladies of the north. Their reputation as raiders and faithful servants of witches, Strix, and other entities that rule forests and mountains fully describes a people that only recently have begun to manifest glimmers of civilization. However, after decades of being immersed in the multifaceted evil of the Lunar Age, some of the Krampus have rejected their devotion to their dark mistresses. Some of them even shun the evil nature that has kept them in chains, or have been driven away by their own kin when they manifest an intellect that goes against their primitive customs. Although they are largely despised, especially in the glacial lands of Alper, it is no longer so unusual to find lone Krampus circling around civilized settlements, or even being welcomed and educated. This creature's appearance and heritage instill fear, but many have come to consider Krampus as valuable allies in the defense of outposts, making it worth welcoming them into civilization. Usually, it is customary among the Krampus to wear a mask or carry it with them, as long as it is clearly visible as a symbol of bonding to the pack. An important trinket that cannot be lost without suffering and humiliation. An unmasked Krampus is usually perceived by others as a loner, potentially not as cruel as its brethren. Sometimes they are educated by a greater Strix or other species, becoming more cultured and honing skills that are normally foreclosed to other members of their species. A Krampus spellcaster usually transcribes spells prepared in the form of symbols or drawings that depict its effect, etched on stones or drawn with coal on pieces of wood. Let's talk about the racial traits of the Krampus. They are gruff and irascible beings, and although characters of this ethnicity try to live with others, they occasionally fall prey to their wild nature when angered. They are pretty high when it comes to constitution and strength. Krampus generally live to around the age of 70 and experience growth similar to that of humans. The bond with the Perktas remains as an indelible mask on their soul, although some may no longer worship these figures. Typically, the characters of this culture remain neutral, tending to believe only in their own individual resources and rarely rely on greater entities. The size of the Krampus is medium, although their height is usually around 6.5 feet. When it comes to speed, they are usually faster than other species. They have dark vision. They have the gift of Perktha, that is, magical darkness does not impede their dark vision. They have wild origins, which means they are proficient in intimidation and nature. They are creatures of the night. They are already stained with darkness, so they have an advantage when it comes to withstanding corrupting influences that causes the loss of soul points. They are so connected to the darkness that they have a poisonous whisper. They can whisper a toxic miasma of dark words, a mixture of common and whispers of the echoes, which can actually poison their enemies. They can also sense weapons that have been touched by darkness. And when it comes to languages, they can speak common and can understand the whisper of the echoes, although the lone Krampus have lost the right to speak it. When it comes to examples of their names, you have male Krampus names derived from animal noises, such as Korosk, Furgol, Gastur. You have examples of female names, such as Dofia, Afia, Fafne. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part, we are going to talk about the Livar and the Rizadrin. I really like the Ishdrim and the Krampus. They are very mysterious, but very different in their own ways. The Ishdrim feel so magically touched, but they have that dark background of having sacrificed the son of the ruler to obtain that fiery connection. And in the case of the Krampus, I really like monstrous player character species or races. It's very fun to play as a monster for a change, and in the case of the Krampus, they are in a way seeking a certain, if not redemption, a separation from the dark powers, even though they depend on that darkness for their abilities and powers. And although they are quite scary, you definitely want them around when you are going into a very dangerous site that is highly corrupted by the darkness. The Krampus are quite resistant to those nefarious effects. Thank you for watching this part of the review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending drive-thru RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you. and see you later.